RLS Spanish presents Spanish pronunciation.
All right, our next group I'd like to talk about is still the letter C, okay, but with the letter C, there's a couple things that happen with the letter C in Spanish. Like we said before, there's a hard C and a soft C is one of the big things, okay? So the hard C we just talked about, the hard C is the K sound, sounds like the letter K. The soft C makes a S sound, it's like the letter S, okay? For this lesson, we're going to be talking about this letter, okay, which technically is no longer a letter in Spanish. It's not part of the alphabet because the Real Academia Española took it out a couple years ago. But since it does make a different sound, I do want to talk about this as its own separate lesson. Okay, so when it was a letter, the way they said it, the name of it was Che. Okay, so this would be called the Che. So you have like A, B, C, D, and this would be the Che. Okay. Now, the reason I like putting this separate is it does make a different sound. Remember, we talked about that the letter C can be a hard C, it can make the K sound, like a K, a K sound. The letter C can also be a soft C when it's followed by an E or an I, which means it makes an S sound. Okay, so S. The soft C makes a S sound, and then with this one, if you have a C and an H, then it makes a Ch sound. Okay, so it's actually really easy. It's doing kind of the same thing we would do in English. Now, one thing I would say about this one that you want to be aware of is anytime you see this ever in Spanish, it's always going to make that sound Ch. Okay, because the hard part with that is in English, sometimes it doesn't do that, right? Sometimes when you have a CH in English, it makes a hard C sound, a K sound, like for example the words archaeology or Christmas or Christian. Okay, in English that's a CH, but it's making a hard C sound. In Spanish, that never happens. Okay, in Spanish, it's always going to make a Ch sound every time you see it. Okay. So let's look at a couple words here that have the Che in it, or the CH in it. Only some of these are cognates, but some of them I just want you to get some practice with the Che. Okay, so here's the first one. Okay, that's what it looks like in Spanish. The way you'd say this one in Spanish is chancho. Okay, this is also good practice of the vowels, the A and the O, right? A-O, chancho. Okay, because in English we'd probably say chancho or something like that. Anyway, in Spanish, chancho. And what this means in English is pig. Okay, so in English it would be the word pig. In Spanish, it's going to be this word. And the way you say it is chancho. Okay, good. So in English, it's pig. In Spanish, you say chancho. Very good. All right, the second one is a cognate. Okay, in English it would be this word. Good, check. Meaning like these are almost going obsolete, and we might not have these in the future, before too long. But in English, it's a check, like one you'd write out to pay for something. Okay, we're moving more towards debit cards, and even seems like away from that with crypto money and stuff. So we might not have checks in the future. But anyway, check. It would be the word check in English. In Spanish, it's going to be spelled this way. Okay, it's going to be this word. And the way you're going to say this one in Spanish is cheque. Cheque. Okay, so in English it's check. In Spanish you'd say cheque. Now, I do want to point out one quick thing. We will have a separate video about this later on. But notice that you don't say cheque. I think a lot of English speakers would want to say cheque with that one. And remember in our video about the vowels, we said all the vowels always make the same sound, and it never does anything different. But I did mention there is one exception to that, and that is with the letter U. Okay, so this is that exception. Okay, and what happens is when you have Q, U, E together in that combination, the U goes silent. Okay, so we're not making any U sound in there. You just go from the Q sound to the E sound, which in Spanish makes the sound A, right? So cheque, cheque. Okay, so anyway, so in English it's the word check. In Spanish you're going to say cheque. Okay, good. All right, this next one, super easy. It's a Spanish-speaking country. In English we would say Chile, but the way you're going to pronounce that in Spanish is Chile. Okay, so the CH does the same thing in both languages, but it's those vowels, the I and the E, make it sound different in Spanish. Okay, so in English, Chile. In Spanish, Chile. Okay. Now, just so you know with that one, that also it can be the Spanish-speaking country, but it can also mean like a hot, spicy pepper, a chili pepper, like red hot chili peppers. Okay, what they call those in Spanish, and I think they use this. I'm pretty sure they use it with any kind of spicy pepper. You can call it a chile. So like a jalapeno could be a chile. And other types of spicy peppers, you can call them chiles. Okay. All right. So anyway, in English we'd say chili. In Spanish you're going to say Chile. Good. All right. This next one. This one's spelled exactly the same in both languages. In English it looks like this. Okay. Good. The way we're going to say that one in English is chocolate. Okay. But in Spanish, it's going to sound a lot different actually because of the vowels. And one of the big differences is the E on the end. Okay, in English, that's going to be silent. But in Spanish, it's never silent. In Spanish, anytime there's an E, it always makes the same sound. It's going to be an A sound. Okay, it's going to make the sound A. So in English, we say chocolate. In Spanish, you're going to say chocolate. So in English, it's chocolate. In Spanish, you say chocolate. Okay, good. All right, this next one. Okay, in English is gonna kind of means like wrestle. Okay, or like to struggle or wrestle with something. It also can kind of mean like fight. Like if you're fighting for something, they use this word for that type of fight. Okay, so it's not a cognate. This one's not a cognate, but it does have a che in it. Okay, so in Spanish it has a che in it. Okay, so in Spanish it's going to be this word, and the way you're going to say it is lucha. Okay, so like I said, in English it'd be like wrestle or struggle or fight. In Spanish it's going to be lucha. If you've ever seen the movie Nacho Libre, by the way, Nacho, that's another word with the che in it. Anyway, Nacho Libre, remember when he's wrestling, he goes to the wrestling matches and he calls it lucha libre. That is what that type of wrestling is called in Spanish, is lucha libre. Okay, so the lucha part of that kind of means like wrestling. So lucha libre kind of means like freestyle wrestling is kind of what that would translate to. Okay, anyway, so in English, wrestle. In Spanish, lucha. Okay, in English, we have this word. Good, the word much, which means if you have like much of something, in English we say like a lot of or many. Okay, and that's actually more commonly what this will mean. The Spanish word is going to mean it usually will translate to like a lot of or many. Okay, but it's a cognate with the word much. Okay, so in English it's much. In Spanish it's going to be this word. Good, you just add an O on the end of it. But it's pronounced different. You say mucho. So in English, much. In Spanish, mucho. Okay. Very good. And I put those two together, lucha and mucho. Those are kind of similar. So I wanted to put those together just because they're similar in Spanish. Okay. All right. One other thing I wanted to point out here, like I said earlier, in English, a lot of times that CH will make a hard C sound. What they will do in Spanish with those, if they are cognates, because some of them are cognates, but what they will do in Spanish with those is they will change it from a CH to just a C in Spanish, like a hard C. Okay, so for example, Christian. Okay, the word Christian is a cognate. So in English we say Christian. In Spanish you're going to say Cristiano. Or if it's a woman or a female, you'd say Cristiana. Okay, but in English it's Christian. In Spanish it'd be Cristiano or Cristiana. Okay, another one that does that. The name Christ, like Jesus Christ. So in English it's Christ. In Spanish you change the spelling a little bit to this, and you'd say Cristo. Okay, so in English Christ spelled with an H, CH, but in Spanish Cristo with just a hard C, no H in it. Okay, so in English Christ, in Spanish Cristo. Now, one that is also a cognate where you just pronounce it different. They don't change the spelling really, but you pronounce it different, is the word archive. Okay, so in English it's archive, spelled with the CH, and the CH is pronounced with the hard C sound though, archive. Now in Spanish it's going to be this word, and the way you're going to say that is archivo. Archivo. Okay, so like I said earlier, in Spanish if it has a CH it's always going to make that ch sound. Okay, so archivo, even though in English it's archive, a hard C sound. Okay, all right, so now I would like to just review these real quick, say them after me, practice the pronunciation. Okay, so we're gonna go through these. I'll say each word twice. After the first time, well, you can just repeat it after me each time I say it. Okay, so the first word was chancho. Chancho. Cheque. Cheque. Chile. Chile. Chocolate. Chocolate. Lucha. Lucha. Mucho. Mucho. Archivo. Archivo. All right, for this I'd like to look just a little bit more at, like I said, those words that in English they have a hard C sound for the CH. They're cognates in Spanish, but in Spanish they're just spelled a little differently. They're spelled with a C instead of a CH. Okay, so it just makes that hard C sound instead of a ch sound. Okay, because in Spanish the way you're going to get rid of that ch sound is you're going to change it to a hard C instead of a CH. Okay, so here are a couple examples of those. In English you would have this word, psychology, spelled with the CH, making a hard C sound. But in Spanish you're going to spell it this way, no H in it. Okay, just a hard C. And the way you're going to say it in Spanish is psicología. So in English, psychology. In Spanish, psicología. Here's the next one. In English, spelled with the CH making a hard C sound, chronological. In Spanish, it's going to be spelled with just a hard C, no H in it, cronológica. So in English, chronological. In Spanish, cronológica. And one last one. In English, it's going to be this word, spelled with the CH, chromosome. In Spanish, spelled this way with no H in it, cromosoma. Okay, so in English, chromosome. In Spanish, chromosoma. Good. And that is because the reason they're doing those without H's in Spanish is because if you have the CH in Spanish, it makes a ch sound, not a k sound. Okay. Alright, let's run through those, just the Spanish ones really quick. I'll say them twice, and you practice the pronunciation by saying it after me. So here we go. Cristianos. Cristianos. Cristo. Cristo. Psicología. Psicología. Cronología. Cronología. Chromosoma. Chromosoma. Okay, sorry, I just actually thought of another one as I was going through those. Christopher Columbus. Christopher. Okay, that's a CH sound. But the way you say those in Spanish, that name Christopher Columbus, you say Cristobal Colón. Cristobal Colón. Okay, so let's run through those one more time and throw that in the mix. Okay, so repeat them after me. Cristianos. Cristianos. Cristo. Cristo. Psicología. Psicología. Cronología. Cronología. Cromosoma. Cromosoma. Cristobal Colón. Cristobal Colón. And the last thing I'd like to mention about the che or the ch in Spanish is that there are some Spanish speakers that with that letter they'll make more of a sh sound, like a sh sound, when it's a ch instead of the ch sound like we do in English. Okay, and the Spanish speakers that talk like that, they're gonna say, like, for example, this word, instead of saying mucho, they might say that like mucho. Or this word, instead of saying chocolate, they might say it like chocolate. Okay, or this word, which means like a boy, instead of saying it muchacho, you'll hear them say it like muchacho. Muchacho. Okay, and that's I believe it's in Mexico is where that happens. So if you meet, it's only some Spanish speakers that are gonna do that pronunciation instead of the ch sound. Okay. And if you're talking to one of those Spanish speakers, they would probably still understand you if you say it like mucho, chocolate, muchacho. They'll understand that. So it's just, I'm just mentioning that because you may get confused if you hear them saying those words and they're saying it like mucho, chocolate, muchacho. Anyway, so the misunderstanding would come from us hearing them, not from them hearing us say it the other way. Okay, muchas gracias. Thank you very much. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. And we hope to see you in our next video. Until next time, adios.